Listen, I have been a detention supervisor for the Galactic Rehabilitation Network for nearly 18 cycles now, and I thought I had seen everything. I really did. But then they assigned me to oversee Subject 71K, otherwise known as Marcus Webb. And honestly, my entire understanding of what constitutes survival instinct got thrown out the airlock. The human arrived at Processing Station Theta, looking exactly like you would expect a criminal to look, which is to say, absolutely nothing special whatsoever. Average height for his species, maybe 1.7 meters tall. Brown hair that stuck up in weird directions, eyes that had this unsettling habit of noticing absolutely everything around him without seeming to move at all. He wore the standard orange detention suit, and when Guard Captain Vrel read him his sentence, the human just smiled, not smirked, not grimaced. Actually smiled. 60 days in Sector 7 Wilderness, Vrel announced. Her 4 eyes blinking in sequence like she always did when delivering bad news. No tools, no weapons, no supplies beyond basic clothing. You will survive using only what the environment provides, or you will not survive at all. Most beings at this point would panic, would beg, would at least have the decency to look concerned. The Zilconi prisoner we had last month actually fainted right there in the processing bay. But Marcus, he just nodded slowly, looked at the holoscreen displaying images of Sector 7's dense, murderous jungle, and said something that should have warned me right then and there. Looks like home. Vrel's antenna twitched. Home? Your file says you are from a planet called Earth, urban sector. Never been outside city limits. Yeah, Marcus said, still smiling that weird smile. But I have seen nature documentaries. I need you to understand something about Sector 7. We chose this location specifically because it is absolutely, categorically, undeniably hostile to life. The vegetation contains enough toxins to kill most species within hours of contact. The atmosphere has a humidity level that makes breathing feel like drowning. The local predators, particularly the 6-legged razor cats and the swamp serpents, have a 94% success rate on hunts. 94%. We drop prisoners there, we monitor them through orbital surveillance, and typically they last maybe 3 days before triggering their emergency beacon and begging for extraction. The whole point is rehabilitation through hardship, through understanding consequences, through facing genuine danger and learning humility. Nobody actually expects them to thrive. We transported Marcus to Drop Zone Omega just after dawn on his first day. Standard procedure. Aerial deployment. Single salishul, landing in a clearing approximately 2 kilometers from the nearest water source. As his pod descended through the canopy, I watched on my monitor, making notes for the daily report. Around me, 3 other supervisors monitored their own subjects, but honestly, everyone kept glancing at my screen. Human prisoners are rare, and there is always this curiosity about how they will fail. Marcus hit the ground, released his parachute harness, and stood there for exactly 37 seconds doing absolutely nothing. Just standing, looking around. Listen. Then he started laughing. Not hysterical laughter, mind you. Just this low chuckle, like someone had told him a joke only he understood. He walked over to a nearby tree, one of those red-barked nightmares with the sap that causes neural paralysis, and he did not touch it. Instead, he bent down, grabbed a stick, and poked the trunk. Watched the sap ooze out. Nodded to himself. Smart, Supervisor Kent muttered from the station next to mine. Testing before touching. Lucky guess, I replied. But I marked it down anyway. The first hour, Marcus walked in expanding circles around his landing zone, using his stick to prod vegetation, turn over rocks, examine insect colonies. He found a stream, followed it upstream for 20 minutes, then backtracked and went downstream instead. When he reached a small waterfall, he stopped, cupped his hands, and brought water to his nose. Just smelled it. Did not drink. He set up camp, if you could call it that, beneath an overhang of rock that provided shelter from above, but left him exposed on 3 sides. Terrible positioning. Any predator could approach easily. I made a note that Subject 71K likely would not survive his first night, and started preparing the extraction protocols. But here is where things got weird. Marcus spent the next 3 hours gathering materials. Not randomly, not frantically. With purpose. He collected long vines, avoiding the ones with thorns, testing each for strength by pulling hard. He gathered broad leaves, the kind that grow in the lower canopy where sunlight barely reaches. He found stones, specific stones, smooth and flat and about the size of his palm. Then he sat down and started weaving. I am serious. This human, this city dweller who had supposedly never been outside before, started creating what I can only describe as a basket. His fingers moved quickly, threading vines over and under, creating a tight pattern. Within an hour, he had a container that held water without leaking. That is not possible, Kent said, now openly watching my screen. Basket weaving requires cultural knowledge, practiced skill. Maybe humans teach primitive crafts in their education systems, I suggested. But even as I said it, I felt doubtful. His file specifically mentioned urban upbringing, technology sector employment. This made no sense. By nightfall, Marcus had accomplished the following. Created 2 baskets, one large and one small. Built a small fire using friction and dried moss. Boiled water in the large basket by heating stones in the fire and dropping them into the water repeatedly. Constructed a basic lean-to against the rock face using branches and broad leaves. And most bizarrely, created what appeared to be a primitive spear by lashing a sharp stone to a straight branch. He sat by his fire eating some kind of tuber he had dug up and roasted, and he looked absolutely content. Comfortable, even. That night, a razor cat approached his camp. I saw it on thermal imaging before Marcus could possibly have known it was there. These creatures are apex predators, silent, fast, lethal. I reached for the emergency extraction control, knowing I was about to watch a human die badly. Marcus threw his spear without looking. The projectile caught the razor cat mid-leap, piercing straight through its chest cavity, and the creature crashed to the ground 3 meters from the fire, dead before it finished twitching. Marcus stood up, walked over to the corpse, pulled out his spear, and dragged the entire animal back to his camp. Then, and I will never forget this, he looked directly up at the sky, directly at where our orbital surveillance satellite would be hovering, and he waved. He knows we are watching, Kent whispered. Impossible, I said. The surveillance technology is undetectable, but Marcus went back to his fire, pulled out the sharp stone he had been using as a knife, and started skinning the razor cat with the efficiency of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. By morning, he had razor cat meat drying on racks he had built, fur stretched and drying separately, bones arranged by size, and he was using sinew to create what looked suspiciously like cordage. Day 2, he built a better shelter. Day 3, he created fish traps from woven vines and placed them in the stream. Day 4, he had caught 7 fish, smoked 3, eaten 4. Day 5, he made a bow, a functional bow, with arrows. On day 6, Marcus walked directly to a grove of trees we did not even know existed. Trees that produce edible nuts rich in protein. He filled both his baskets, carried them back to camp, and spent the evening crushing them into paste and forming them into cakes that he cooked on hot stones. How does he know where to find these things? Brel demanded when I showed her the daily report. How does he know what is edible? The toxin profile of Sector 7 vegetation should kill him within days of trial and error. He is not doing trial and error, I said slowly, watching the playback of Marcus examining a mushroom, smelling it, rubbing a tiny amount on his inner arm, waiting 20 minutes, then cautiously tasting it. He is testing, systematically. By day 10, Marcus had constructed what could only be described as a small village. He had 3 shelters, one for sleeping, one for food storage, one for tool making. He had created a crude pottery wheel and was firing clay pots in a kiln he had built from river stones. He had domesticated, and I use that word loosely, a small reptilian creature that he fed scraps to and that now followed him around like some kind of pet. The razor cat fur had become a crude cloak. The bones had become tools. The sinew had become thread. He had woven a hat from leaves to protect against sun, He had created a water filtration system using sand, charcoal, and gravel layered in one of his clay pots. On day 15, he started making maps, using charcoal and razor cat blood for ink, flat bark sections for paper. He began documenting the area, water sources, edible plants, predator territories, everything. "This is not rehabilitation," Supervisor Rick said during our weekly meeting. "This is colonization." And here is the thing that really got to me. Marcus was not just surviving. He was comfortable, happy, even. He sang songs while he worked. He talked to his little reptile companion. He named it Gerald, which apparently is a common human name, though why you would name a reptile that is beyond me. On day 23, another prisoner triggered their emergency beacon in Sector 7, about 8 kilometers from Marcus's camp. Standard protocol meant we had to extract them, and the transport shuttle flew directly over Marcus's location on the way out. He had expanded his settlement, had built a second level to his main shelter, had cleared a garden plot, and was apparently attempting agriculture. And when the shuttle passed overhead, he looked up, shielded his eyes against the sun, and gave us another wave. This time he was smiling. Word spread through the facility. Other supervisors started checking my screens during breaks. Administrators began requesting daily briefings. Even the facility director, Overseer Than himself, started attending the meetings. Everyone wanted to understand how this human, this supposedly unremarkable human from a supposedly unremarkable planet, had not just survived but thrived in conditions designed to break prisoners psychologically. On day 30, exactly halfway through his sentence, something happened that changed everything. A supply pod meant for emergency drops to prisoners in distress malfunctioned during orbital deployment. Instead of reaching its intended recipient in Sector 12, it crashed in Sector 7, approximately 300 meters from Marcus's camp. The pod contained ration packs, medical supplies, a basic survival knife, fire-starting equipment, and a solar-powered communication beacon. We watched, all of us gathered around the screens, to see what Marcus would do. He found the pod within an hour, examined it carefully, opened it, looked at the contents for a long moment. Then he closed it, covered the pod with branches and leaves to hide it, and walked back to his camp empty-handed. Empty-handed. Why? Kempf asked. What everyone was thinking. Why would he not take those supplies? I did not have an answer. Marcus went back to his regular routine, checking fish traps, tending his garden where small shoots were beginning to emerge, working on a project that appeared to involve creating some kind of kiln-fired ceramic container with a lid. He spent the rest of day 30 exactly as he had spent day 29 and day 28. That night, I reviewed his file again, looked deeper than the surface charges. The basic biography. Marcus Webb, 32 Earth years old, arrested for unauthorized access to protected wilderness areas on his home planet. Multiple violations of preservation laws. When questioned, he had stated he was studying survival techniques, learning ancient human skills that had been largely forgotten in urban societies. The magistrate had called it a waste of potential, a privileged human playing at primitive life while real work needed doing. The sentence to Sector 7 was meant to show him real wilderness, real danger, real consequences, except nobody had considered that maybe, just maybe, this was exactly what Marcus wanted. On day 35, a storm hit Sector 7. Massive, violent, the kind that tears through the jungle and destroys everything not anchored down. Warning systems activated automatically, ready to extract any prisoner whose shelter failed, because exposure in those conditions meant certain death. Marcus's camp disappeared under sheets of rain and wind. We lost visual for 6 hours. When the storm cleared and satellites re-established visual contact, I found myself holding my breath. Marcus's settlement stood intact. Better than intact. He had apparently predicted the storm, had reinforced every structure, had created drainage channels to redirect water flow, had even built a covered area for Gerald the reptile. And Marcus himself sat by a fire protected, under a waterproof shelter made from sealed clay tiles he had apparently created specifically for this purpose. eating dried fish and looking absolutely unbothered. He noticed the satellite repositioning for a better view and saluted with a piece of fish. This was going to be a very long 60 days. By day 40, the situation had escalated beyond anything in Rehabilitation Network protocol. We had 16 different department heads requesting access to the surveillance feeds. The Xenobiology Institute wanted tissue samples. The Survival Studies Academy wanted to interview him post-sentence. 3 different military branches submitted formal requests for his psychological profile. And Marcus? Marcus was building furniture. Actual furniture. A chair with a woven seat. A table with carved legs. A shelf unit attached to his main shelter wall, where he organized his tools by function and size. He had created an actual door for his sleeping shelter using a wooden frame and stretched, treated razor cathide. The door had hinges made from bone and cordage. It swung open and closed smoothly. Gerald the reptile had apparently bred, because now there were 4 smaller versions following Marcus around. He had names for all of them. Gerald, Geraldine, Gary, and why the last one was called Spot when it looked identical to the others remained a mystery. Even Marcus seemed to find amusing based on the way he laughed when he introduced them to absolutely nobody. He is talking to himself more, Vrel observed during the day 42 briefing. Possible psychological deterioration. I played back the audio. Marcus was narrating his own actions like he was hosting some kind of educational program. Now you want to test the clay consistency before forming your pot. Too wet, it will collapse. Too dry, it will crack during firing. See? Perfect texture. This is going into the kiln at approximately 800 degrees, and in 6 hours we will have a water storage vessel that can hold up to 3 gallons. That is not deterioration, Supervisor Kempf said quietly. That is teaching. Teaching who? Rel's antennae curled in confusion. There is nobody there. But I understood. Marcus was not descending into madness. He was practicing, refining his explanations. Like he knew that eventually someone would want to know how he did all this, and he was preparing his answers in advance. On day 45, things took another turn. A genuine emergency occurred in Sector 7. Not with Marcus, but with another prisoner we had dropped 3 zones away, 4 weeks earlier. Prisoner 83M, a Vosterian trader convicted of smuggling, had encountered a swamp serpent nest and been bitten multiple times. The venom was shutting down his respiratory system. We had maybe 30 minutes to extract him before permanent damage occurred. The fastest extraction route flew directly over Marcus's settlement. Maintain altitude, I ordered the pilot. Do not deviate from flight path. But as the extraction shuttle approached, something impossible happened. Marcus emerged from his shelter carrying what looked like a large leaf bundle. He ran to his clearing, waved both arms over his head in the universal signal for distress, and pointed frantically north, toward where prisoner 83. How does he know? The pilot asked over the comm. How does he possibly know there is an emergency? Marcus kept pointing north, kept gesturing. Then he held up the leaf bundle and pointed at it. Then north again. Then made a gesture like drinking. Is he offering medical supplies? Vrel asked, now standing behind my station. How would he even have medical supplies? I made a decision that probably violated 40 different regulations. Land the shuttle. 30 seconds only. The pilot brought the craft down in Marcus's clearing. The human ran to the loading ramp as it descended, thrust the leaf bundle at the extraction medic, and spoke rapidly in standard galactic with a thick accent but perfect grammar. Swamp serpent antidote. Crush these leaves, mix with water, make him drink. 3 doses, 1 hour apart. He will vomit. That is good, means the venom is purging. Keep him hydrated. Go. Go now. The medic, too shocked to argue, took the bundle. The shuttle lifted off. Marcus stepped back, shielded his eyes from the thruster wash, and watched them disappear toward the north. We saved prisoner 83. The leaf mixture worked exactly as Marcus described. Venom purged, respiratory function restored, full recovery expected. The medical team analyzed the remaining plant matter and confirmed it contained compounds that directly counteracted swamp serpent venom through a chemical process. Nobody fully understood, but that definitely, absolutely worked. How did a human from an urban sector of a distant planet know the medical properties of a plant from Sector 7? Overseer Than asked the question we were all thinking. This defies reasonable explanation. I pulled up Marcus's file again, read deeper into the arrest records. Found something I had missed before. The unauthorized wilderness areas he had accessed on Earth, they were not just any wilderness. They were preservation zones for ancient human knowledge, places where indigenous populations had maintained traditional practices for thousands of years. Marcus had not been stealing or vandalizing. He had been learning, studying, apprenticing with people who still remembered how humans survived before technology, before cities, before everything that made modern life easy. The magistrate had seen a criminal. But what if Marcus was something else entirely? What if he was a keeper of knowledge that most humans had forgotten? Day 50 arrived with another surprise. Marcus began construction on a structure significantly larger than anything he had built before. He cleared a space, marked out dimensions using a cordage grid system, and started gathering materials on a scale that suggested serious ambition. Over the next 5 days, we watched him build what could only be described as a long house, 4 meters wide, 8 meters long, with a peaked roof, multiple rooms, a central fire pit with a chimney system made from carefully stacked stones, and windows covered with stretched, translucent membranes from some plant I could not identify. He furnished it, created more chairs, more tables, built sleeping platforms, carved storage boxes, wove floor mats. He painted decorative patterns on the walls using pigments derived from various minerals and plants. He hung dried herbs from the ceiling beams. He created a functional kitchen area with a stone counter, organized tool storage, and a water basin that drained through a bamboo pipe into his garden. On day 56, 4 days before his sentence ended, Marcus hosted a dinner party. I am serious. He set his table, laid out clay plates and cups he had made, prepared a meal using fish, roasted tubers, sautéed greens, and some kind of bread he had baked in his outdoor oven. He served portions onto 5 plates, poured water into 5 cups, and sat down at the head of the table. Then he started talking to 4 empty chairs. Gerald, pass the fish, please. Gary, do not eat with your hands. We are civilized here. Geraldine, tell Spot he needs to try the greens. They are nutritious. He paused between statements like he was listening to responses, laughed at jokes nobody told, argued playfully about nothing. Now he is broken, Vrel said sadly. The isolation has finally damaged his mind. But I was not so sure. Because every few minutes, Marcus would glance up at the sky, at where he knew our satellites watched, and his smile would change, become knowing. Like he was performing, like he wanted us to see this specific scene and draw this specific conclusion. He is messing with us, Kenneth said slowly. That human is deliberately messing with our heads. Day 60 arrived, extraction scheduled for dawn. Standard protocol required the prisoner to be transported back to processing station Theta, undergo medical evaluation, psychological assessment, and then face the magistrate for sentencing review. The night before extraction, Marcus did something that I still cannot fully explain. He walked to the hidden supply pod, the one he had covered and left untouched for 30 days. He uncovered it, opened it, and removed a single item, the solar-powered communication beacon. He carried it back to his longhouse, activated it, and sent a text-only message that appeared on every monitor in the facility simultaneously. Thank you for the vacation. Best 60 days of my life. Please inform the magistrate that if he wants to punish me further, I volunteer for another sentence. Same location, double the duration. I have so many projects planned. Also, I left detailed notes on local ecology, edible plants, fresh water sources, shelter construction, and predator behavior patterns in the main shelter. Consider it a gift to future prisoners. They will need it less than I did, but maybe it will help someone. P.S. Gerald says hello. P.P.S. There is no Gerald. P.P.P.S. Or is there? The message ended with coordinates to his main shelter and a hand-drawn map showing the location of every resource he had cataloged during his stay. Dawn came. The extraction shuttle landed in his clearing. Marcus walked out wearing his razor cat cloak, carrying a small pack containing what I assumed were personal items he wanted to keep. The 4 actual reptiles, because yes, they were real and yes, he had somehow partially domesticated them, followed him to the shuttle ramp. Guard Captain Vrel stood at the entrance, all 4 eyes blinking in that sequence that meant confusion. Prisoner 7-1K, are you ready for extraction? Sure, Marcus said cheerfully. Can I bring Gerald? There is no approved protocol for extracting wildlife. That is a no then. Marcus knelt down, said something to the largest reptile in a language that sounded like clicks and hisses, and the creature actually responded with its own series of sounds. Then all 4 reptiles retreated toward the longhouse. Marcus boarded the shuttle without looking back. During the flight to processing station Theta, he sat quietly, looking out the viewport at the jungle passing below. Vrel tried 3 times to engage him in conversation, to understand what had happened, how he had survived so easily when every metric suggested he should have failed. Finally, Marcus spoke. You know what your mistake was? Enlighten me, Vrel said. You assumed Earth is safe. That humans are soft because we have technology, because we live in cities, because we do not fight predators daily. He turned from the viewport and his expression was completely serious now. But Earth is a death world. It has been trying to kill humans since we climbed down from the trees. Predators, parasites, poisonous plants, extreme weather, bacterial infections, viral plagues, you name it. We survived all of it without technology for hundreds of thousands of years. He gestured toward the window, toward Sector 7 below. That jungle? Those are rookie dangers compared to Earth's prehistoric environments. And some of us, a few of us, we remember how it was done. We keep the knowledge alive, we practice the skills, not because we need them, but because forgetting them feels like losing part of what makes us human. Vrel's antennae went completely still. You were never in danger. Oh, I was definitely in danger, Marcus corrected. That first razor cat nearly got me. I just happened to have very good reflexes, and better luck. But after that, after I established basic shelter and food security, he smiled that knowing smile again. After that, I was camping. The psychological evaluation took 3 hours. The evaluator, a Centaurian specialist in prisoner rehabilitation, emerged looking disturbed. He shows no signs of trauma, no indication of stress response, no psychological damage whatsoever. If anything, he appears more mentally balanced than when he arrived. His stress markers are actually lower. The medical evaluation found him in perfect health. Better than perfect, actually. He had gained muscle mass. His Fargiasgor markers were excellent, and he showed no signs of malnutrition, parasite infection, or exposure damage. The magistrate's review hearing happened 2 days later. I attended as the supervising officer. Marcus stood in the center of the chamber, wearing standard civilian clothing, looking completely comfortable, while the magistrate reviewed the reports with increasing disbelief. Prisoner 71K, you were sentenced to 60 days in a hostile environment as punishment for Ontarwar's wilderness access on your home world. The intent was to demonstrate the danger of unregulated nature, to instill respect for preservation laws, to rehabilitate your disregard for proper protocols. The magistrate's voice carried 4 harmonics of confusion. Instead, you appear to have had an enjoyable experience. It was pretty great, Marcus agreed. Really relaxing. Good work-life balance. Highly recommend. This is not the intended outcome of rehabilitation sentencing. Maybe you should rethink your rehabilitation model, Marcus suggested. Because from my perspective, you gave me free food, free housing, and 2 months away from my actual problems. The job I hated, the debt collectors, the noise and pollution and crowding. You took all that away and gave me a jungle full of resources and 0 responsibilities beyond survival. That was not punishment. That was therapy. The magistrate's third eye opened, which in their species signals extreme stress. You are saying we rewarded you for criminal behavior. I mean, I would not phrase it exactly that way. But yes, kind of. Marcus shrugged. Look, I understand I broke your laws. I accessed protected areas without authorization. I accept that was wrong by your legal standards, but understand this from my perspective. Those areas contain knowledge my species spent millennia developing. Skills that kept us alive through ice ages and droughts and every disaster Earth threw at us. When we moved to cities, most of us forgot those skills, but some of us think that is dangerous. That forgetting how to survive without technology makes us vulnerable. He leaned forward slightly, and for the first time I heard genuine passion in his voice. What if your power grids fail? What if your supply chains collapse? What if every piece of technology you rely on suddenly stops working? Most species in this galaxy would die in days. But some humans would just shrug and start building fires and shelters and tools. Because we remember. Because some of us refuse to forget. The chamber went silent. Every official present seemed to be processing this perspective they had never considered. Finally, the magistrate spoke. Your sentence is complete. You are free to return to Earth. However, I am flagging your file with a recommendation that any future violations result in urban confinement instead of wilderness placement. A pause. As you correctly noted, we appear to have accidentally rewarded you. Marcus grinned. Appreciate it. As he left the chamber, Rel caught up to him in the corridor. Before you leave, I must ask. The supply pod. Why did you not use those resources? Because I did not need them, Marcus said simply. And more importantly, I wanted to see if I could do it without modern help. That was the whole point, not survival. Proof that the old ways still work. That humans can still do what our ancestors did. And the message at the end? The notes you left. If you are going to keep using Sector 7 for prisoner rehabilitation, you should at least give them a fighting chance. My notes will help. Not much, but some. He started walking toward the departure terminal, then stopped and turned back. Also, tell whoever designs your hostile environments that they should add more variety to the predator patrol patterns. The razor cats were way too predictable. Made hunting them almost boring. I watched him disappear into the crowd of travelers, just another human among thousands of species, completely unremarkable in appearance. But now I knew better. Now I understood that Earth had produced something genuinely terrifying. A species that turned death worlds into vacation spots. 3 weeks later, I received a data packet from an Earth address. No message, just a file. When I opened it, I found a comprehensive guide titled Wilderness Survival for Galactic Species, a Human Perspective. It contained over 300 pages of detailed instructions, illustrations, safety warnings, and resource guides. The dedication page read, To Guard Captain Vrel and Supervisor Yeneth, thank you for the opportunity. If you ever need a consultant for your wilderness rehabilitation programs, I am available. Reasonable rates. Will work for jungle access. I forwarded it to Overseer Than with a simple note. Recommend we never sentence humans to wilderness environments again. Suggest urban confinement as alternative. His response came within the hour. Recommendation approved. Also, how much does this Marcus person charge for consulting? The Survival Studies Academy is very interested, and that is how a human convicted of unauthorized wilderness access became the Galactic Rehabilitation Network's highest-paid survival consultant, got legal access to preservation areas across 12 systems, and turned a punishment into the career opportunity of a lifetime. Sometimes I still watch the recordings from Sector 7. Marcus building his longhouse, talking to his reptiles, waving at satellites, and I think about what he said about humans remembering, about refusing to forget the skills that kept them alive. Earth is a death world. We all knew that academically, but Marcus taught us what that really means. It means humans evolved in hell and learned to call it home. It means they look at hostile environments and see opportunities. It means that what we consider punishment, they consider practice. I submitted my full report with one final note. Human survival instinct is not impressive because it helps them survive. It is impressive because they actually enjoy it. The magistrate never sentenced another human to wilderness rehabilitation. But Marcus, last I heard, he was running wilderness training camps on 6 different planets. teaching other species how to survive using primitive techniques, and absolutely loving every minute of it. He sent me a postcard last month from a Class C death world. Picture of him standing in front of a volcano, giving a thumbs up. The message on the back said, "Weather is beautiful, food is plentiful. Learned to speak with the local wildlife. Highly recommend." 5 stars. That human is living his best life, and honestly, good for him.